Welcome home, horror fans. My name's Adam.
And I'm Zoe, and welcome to the first official episode of the Horror Source podcast.
We're finally doing it. We're sitting down and just having a casual chat, unlike we do normally on this channel. But this is just going to be a nice space for us to maybe throw in a little bit of news and also talk mostly about like what we've been watching, whether that's TV shows, movies, and otherwise, and just cover over sort of what we've been up to.
I think this is really exciting as well because I think that this is when Adam and I are in our element, when we can speak freely about all the different things that we've been watching and in different horror news. Because believe it or not, we don't just watch Saw. There is some other stuff that
There is some other stuff sometimes
that we quite enjoy.
Yes.
And we'd love to speak more about these different franchises and movies and TV shows that we really enjoy watching.
That's right. And on that note, we are going to be talking about a lot of other properties very soon. There's going to be a lot more top 10s and a lot more other videos just in general. I know there's people who love Saw and just want nothing but Saw, so plenty more Saw to come, don't worry. But we will start talking about some other franchises, some other movies. You know, at some point we do have to talk about something else, I guess. That being said, in this episode, we do have a small little Saw 11 update, and then we will also be talking about a couple of different movies, as mentioned. Movies including The Passenger, which we saw recently. You want to mention a couple that we've also seen recently?
Yeah, No One Will Save You,
that was a big one.
We saw alongside The Passenger. It was a bit of a double feature for us.
Yes.
Speaks specifically about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise.
Which we have just watched the entire series of, the entire franchise. We had the opportunity
to watch recently, 9 movies in, and wow, that is a franchise. And not only those movies, but also The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live,
yeah.
The Ones Who Live,
yes. Walking Dead is back, and I'd say bigger than ever almost, which is really cool. Getting us started, of course, though, the thing you all want to hear about, Saw 11 wise. Look, there's not a lot of information, and that's why we haven't done heaps of news updates here.
I think Saw 11 is really interesting because they are keeping it very quiet.
Very quiet.
We've got a release date,
yes,
and we've got a director.
Yes.
But that's about it.
We did have, of course, good old Costas Mandylor confirm his return, and Tobin Bell. And I guess on that note, we do have one other little piece of news, and that is that for you guys who saw the update or saw our video about Mark Hoffman's return, Costas Mandylor actually took down the post of him confirming his return for Saw 11. So the powers that be
he got in a bit of trouble.
Have gone ahead and knocked on Costas Mandylor's door and said, "Excuse me, what are you doing? What is happening here?" And they've actually taken the post down. So I'm glad that we made that video. The video does have his Instagram post in that video. So if you want to see it, if you haven't seen that video yet.
It still exists. It's still out there.
It still exists.
I think it's very interesting that Costas Mandylor is the one to let the cat out of the bag about Saw 11 and announce these things so early. And you know what? You can see how excited he is to be a part of this franchise and to be back in the picture. Even with like leading up to Saw 10, we saw him post a little bit more freely in the weeks leading up about maybe just Saw content, not necessarily announcing that he's back in it, but alluding to it.
Yes.
And he's a very interesting character, and I personally love that he's super excited. But they've definitely hushed him a little bit. So.
Yeah, I don't know who's more excited. If he's more excited or we're more excited that he's back. But it's a very big deal. And yes, he did confirm his return for Saw 11. So yes, he's definitely in it. And he did confirm Tobin Bell. But he's taken the post down. It's very exciting because it even confirms it more.
It confirms it even further.
But they made him take it down. We love that. And aside from that, in terms of Saw 11 news, there has been a few posts going around, which you may have seen if you're in Saw Facebook groups, if you're in social media circles and where they're posting this. There has been a post going around mentioning possible delays to Saw 11. People are concerned that there's issues with filming. They haven't started filming yet, I think they said.
Yeah, I think that people are concerned a bit that Saw 11 hasn't started filming when Saw 10 had already started filming around this time and basically nearly wrapped. So people are a bit concerned that it's not going to be released in time. There's been some mention of them not being able to film in Mexico. Again, we don't know how much of this is official leaks or whether it's true or not. I think that if Saw's taught us something if anything, based on the past movies, these films are pretty good at getting released once a year, or have been previously. So I think that we can stay pretty hopeful that it will come out in September. I don't think there's much to worry about at this current stage, and I think we'll definitely be updated if there is by an official source.
Exactly. I like to believe that this is a straight rumor, that there won't be any delays. There might be issues. There's always issues with filming things.
Of course.
But at the moment, there's no official word. There's just rumors going around. And I certainly do not want to believe those rumors. I want to believe that I'm going to be sitting in a cinema, let's say around the end of September, watching Saw 11.
Yep.
So if there is any change in that, if there is a delay, you'll definitely hear it from us.
Look, I think like Adam and I said at the start of this video, there hasn't been much official word from the Saw pages themselves other than specifically a date. I don't even think they themselves announced that Kevin Grutert was returning. It was...
Weirdly enough, there was an official confirmation of Kevin Grutert returning to direct, of course, the director of Saw 10. But there was no word from Saw's official page. No, it came from elsewhere.
If we know anything, they have posted the date. Yep. And I think that them posting the date pretty much solidifies that it is coming around that date. They're pretty certain. Considering how tight-lipped they've kept on everything else, I think that we can...
I think there would have to be almost a worldwide disaster to stop them from releasing this movie on the official date that they've gone and confirmed. So they're
pretty confident. We're pretty confident.
Still very confident.
Yeah, I think that
100%.
that covers that one.
Absolutely. So otherwise, we will keep you updated if they do release anything else. But outside of that, just a few rumors really going around at the moment. Moving on from Saw 11 news, sorry guys. We do want to touch on the fact that there is, of course, the new Walking Dead series out. We're not going to do any spoilers here. We're not going to talk any spoilers about the movies or the shows.
Other than the fact that Rick is back.
Rick is, of course, back. We do know that. He is the main character in this new show. We are fans of The Walking Dead. We enjoyed Dead City. We did watch through that. But I think that we're enjoying The Ones Who Live, which is currently halfway through its season, a lot more, I've got to say.
Yeah, Dead City is very interesting. I think that the dynamic between Maggie and Negan was always going to be quite an interesting one, and was always going to be something that enticed fans and brought people in. Yeah. But I think overall the story of The Ones Who Live so far has been so much cooler. So good. I think that seeing Rick and Michonne back together is amazing, and of course Rick front and foremost, having him back is nostalgic as.
For me, it just proves that Andrew Lincoln as Rick is the best. And Rick has always brought it in that show. I know you've always liked to fight me on Rick being the best, but Rick is the best. And I think if you're coming around watching the show a little bit.
Definitely. I've always appreciated Rick as a character. I think Rick was at his best in season 4 and season 5 when he was super crazy and willing to do
How good season 4.
Yeah, but willing to do these absolutely insane things for the people that he loves and to survive. And that's when I liked Rick the most. I think that as the series went on and Rick started to become a little bit calmer and a little bit more level-headed, that's when he sort of lost me a bit.
You love him crazy.
I love the crazy Rick, and I think that the crazy Rick is the most authentic Rick, and it's the most Rick, the most Rick feeling Rick. Based on the environment they're in, it just seemed like the most authentic.
Yeah, I think Andrew Lincoln just brings it. He brings it every scene. I got to say, with Andrew Lincoln, it doesn't even matter what the writing is like, but him playing Rick in, whether it was the original Walking Dead, which he got out before it became a complete train wreck, let's be honest, or him now coming back for this new show. He's just fantastic. He just commands your attention no matter what is happening on the screen. He does have some funny scenes in this show sometimes where you're like, what are you talking about? But it's still great. It's still great, and we're loving it. We're having a really great time with the show.
With you saying that he does have some funny scenes, the writing has proved at times to be a bit funky with Rick's character, because it almost seems like they don't quite understand him. They're not quite sure of who Rick is either. I definitely like that it's leaning a little bit more into the comic realm of the universe, and I do like the gore and the violence, and I think that it's going really well. Let's just hope, fingers crossed, they don't decide to kill Rick off. I don't
see it happening, but the great thing about this show on that point, I've got to say, is that The Walking Dead, for me, when it first started, was such a great show purely because you did actually have real fear for the characters. Going through the first early seasons, anyone could die at any moment. Any moment, people were dropping off like flies. And I think towards the end of Walking Dead, no one died. You weren't scared for anybody. The show just lost its like sense of real fear or dread. You just knew everybody was going to be fine. And now this show that's come back, The Ones Who Live, characters die again, and they, you know, and they've got some great characters, some, you know, some very new ones that come in even from the first episode and stuff. But you actually do get concerned for people's well-being again, and
maybe not Rick and Michonne's,
maybe less the main stars, but everyone else is expendable, and and anyone could die, and there's some great like sudden deaths out of nowhere that you don't see coming. You're like, oh shit, that person didn't last very long. And that you got to love that. You got to love the fact that people can die and things can happen dramatically.
Well, I think that's the thing about all these spin-off shows is they're introducing these characters only to be killed off.
Of course, yeah.
Either the same episode or a few episodes thereafter. And I think that that's kind of the greatness of it, but also the downfall, because you're not giving us enough time to get into these characters. So I typically don't really enjoy that too much. I definitely prefer the long form seasons of The Walking Dead. I want to build these characters up, and I want to get used to these characters and get to know them, and that's what I find I'm not enjoying too much about the spin-off series. I really do hope that it all comes together again. I'm a strong believer that they
want the band all to be back together again.
They have all these stories that they want to do, and all these different compartments and all these different characters that they want to follow.
Too many.
But they were doing that in The Walking Dead anyway. So if you've got all this story to tell, just keep the series running.
I think that on that point, though, you remind me about one of my gripes about Walking Dead, and the issue really was that there was too many characters. There was so many characters. Now you've got like 50 characters, and you like go back and there's some doctor guy and he's talking to his partner and she's pregnant, and I'm like, I don't even know who these people are. I don't care. And like kill some of these people off. There's too many things. And I think that's why I like these spin-offs, because they bring us back down to maybe 2, 3, 4 characters, and that's the major focus, and we can really enjoy their time. We're not trying to look at 50 different people and see what they're up to and stuff like that. So I'm actually really enjoying the major focus. And again, Andrew Lincoln as Rick, just can't tell you how much I love watching him. Definitely my favorite. But yeah, I think this show does it better than Dead City, which we keep mentioning, which is the Negan and Maggie show. I think that this is definitely the highlight. Spoiler alert. Sorry, not really a spoiler, but we have not seen the Daryl Dixon show. I just thought I'd mention that. We didn't actually watch it.
We watched like the first 15 minutes of the first episode. And look, that's not to say that we don't want to see the Daryl Dixon show. I've actually always been kind of interested in seeing it.
We will watch it.
I like Daryl as a character, and it does excite me, and I've definitely seen moments from the show.
Yes.
But I struggle a bit with TV series actually sitting down and finding the time to watch it. I definitely prefer movies more in the sense that it's a 2-hour thing and it's done. Yeah. In most cases, anyway. Whereas TV shows, there's usually these filler bits that don't need to be there just to fill out that episode, and it's like, you could have just made this a long movie. But
yeah, well, look, it's that, and also I think partially the fact that we knew it was Daryl going to France, and we're like, what is that all about? You know, I'm not. Maybe just give us some real stories. Daryl going to France, and I don't know. It looks crazy.
Well,
anyway.
In saying that, The Ones Who Live as well is getting a bit like...
It is a bit over the top.
I don't know.
It is a bit over the top, but
Maggie
it's a lot
and
of fun.
Negan probably seemed the most realistic in the universe they were in, and even that was a bit over the top. So.
I did think Maggie and Negan's show, again, Dead City, was great. I actually did enjoy it, but this is far better. This is The Ones Who Live is got to be the best spin-off, 100%. Yeah. How do you beat Rick and Michonne? You can't beat it. Anyway, we've talked about that enough, I suppose. We're moving on to our next property, and if you want to talk a little bit about Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. This is an interesting one.
Yeah, so just to give you a bit of clarity with this, we are sitting down and watching franchises from beginning to end so that we can start discussing them in better detail. Look, some of the movies, I want to say for at least me, for most of the movies, I'm actually watching for the first time, a lot of them. Zoe might have seen a lot of them, but it's more of a recap and refresh.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a mixture.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I'd probably seen, I want to say, 2 max out of the franchise. Of course, there's the original, which everyone's sort of seen.
That's right.
But it had been a very long time since I'd seen the original, and I'd never sat down and watched the entire franchise before. And let me just say, this
Can I just cut you off for 1 second? Anybody who's actually sat and watched every single Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, right now, write in the comments, I have actually sat down and watched them all, because I don't know anyone personally.
I don't think there's a single person out there that has.
I don't know anyone personally that has actually seen all 9. Not personally. You know, like there's somebody out there, surely. But if you have seen all 9 Texas Chainsaw movies,
because we're talking about
put them down.
Next generation.
Yeah,
we're talking about Texas Chainsaw 3.
Yeah.
Texas Chainsaw 3, I never even knew existed.
I didn't know either.
I didn't know the next gen existed. I had no clue.
Yeah. Did you know that Matthew McConaughey was in a Texas Chainsaw movie? I didn't know.
I had no idea.
I didn't know.
I had no idea whatsoever. And I'm glad I know now.
Yeah,
and I'm glad I had the opportunity to sit down and watch all 9 of these films. But let me just say, give or take maybe 1 or 2, all of these films are the exact same movie,
Yes, they are.
just done over and over again. And somehow, even though they are the exact same movie, Leatherface as a character changes every single time.
Yeah, Leatherface changes more as a character than the storyline does. It's the same story.
The story is the exact same, and every time they're like, you know what would change this if we just completely derailed Leatherface?
It's every film starts with this group of young sort of, I want to say kids, but young adults in a van
that
usually.
Are traveling across
traveling
Texas.
in Texas, and they happen to meet some weird, crazy person, and then they always end up at the same farmhouse with all the crazy people in it, and it's the exact same storyline, and you just keep going through the franchise, and you're like, how is this every sequel the same story every time?
Like, give or take maybe 1 or 2, but even those 1 or 2, like, they still have so many of the same elements. I think Leatherface, as in the 2017 Leatherface, the prequel and
the movie Leatherface,
introduction to Leatherface as a character and how he became who he was maybe the first creative reset for the franchise. But even then, like, it still ends up being the same film at the end anyway. Eventually.
It's a proper prequel to the first one.
It's just insane.
And the problem is,
crazy.
as well, is the naming structure, because you have, like, Texas Chainsaw 1, 2, and then technically there's a 3 and 4, but there's, like, what, Next Generation? Like, just dumb names.
So there's Texas Chainsaw 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's Jessica Biel's Texas Chainsaw, which is a remake kind of reboot. Plus, then there's a prequel to that, and then you've got 3D and Leatherface. Which
and I hate the naming structure because I try to remember the 6, 7, 8, 9 ones, and you're like, oh, that one was called Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's just what it's called. That one was called Leatherface. That one was called Texas Chainsaw 3D. The new latest one's just called Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes.
Can you call it something else?
And so is Jessica Biel's one, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They're all called the same thing.
Can you give them a new name or something?
At least with Saw, we've got our Roman numerals.
Do something. There's no structure.
It's just a nightmare, and it's probably up there with one of the most confusing timelines.
Yeah.
Alongside like Halloween, I would say.
Very tough.
Even Halloween is a little bit more easy to follow. But this one, it's apparently like even Texas 3D is also like you've got Leatherface and then the original Texas Chainsaw and then Texas 3D, and it's like they're all one, and oh my god, it's too much.
It's too much. I try to go back and remember everything that we've seen through the 9 films, and I just confuse, like, okay, what was that one called again? Anyway, that's enough about Texas Chainsaw names, but we did sit through all the 9 movies.
We did. I think that we have definitely found our favorite characters, found our favorite moments. I personally absolutely adore Texas Chainsaw 2. I think it's amazing.
We need a little bit of explainer here about why really you love Texas Chainsaw 2.
Okay, Bill Moseley's in Texas Chainsaw 2, Bill Moseley's been a big, I suppose, newfound love for me. I got to sit down and watch all of Rob Zombie's Firefly trilogy, where I discovered Bill Moseley, and of course, finding out that he was in Texas Chainsaw 2, it was the obvious franchise to go and watch after that. Texas Chainsaw 2, not only because of Bill Moseley, is also great. Like, it's that funny style with the pretty colors and the good music.
Yes, and sorry, just a brief explainer. Bill Moseley plays Chop Top, the main sort of well-known villain of Texas Chainsaw 2, who also plays Otis in House of a Thousand Corpses, if you've seen either of those movies.
Yeah, which we'll talk about House of a Thousand Corpses a lot. So get ready for that. Buckle in. I highly suggest that you watch all 3 in that Rob Zombie's franchise of the Firefly trilogy. They're amazing, and stay tuned to hear
horror
more
classics.
About it. Horror classics.
Yes.
Horror classics.
You'll get to know about them quite well if you stick around, for sure. And yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there's plenty of content from that franchise from us to come, as it is one of the franchises we just watched. We are making our way through, like I said, all the franchises. We did finish watching Nightmare on Elm Street recently as well, so we're excited to talk about that. We've got a few franchises to catch up on and go over. So you might have seen the poll recently come out that we asked about what you guys want to see. So yeah, we want to try and get our feelers out and start talking about all sorts of stuff, but definitely the big classic franchises for sure. And moving on to some of the more recent movies that we've seen. Basically, these are a couple films that we saw recently because they were two of the more awarded films of last year. We watched the Dead Meat Awards.
We did. We watched the Dead Meat Awards, and every time the Dead Meat Awards come out, I swear to God, I've never seen half the films that they talk about. Yeah. They just completely slip through my radar. And
horror is difficult to keep on top of sometimes.
It definitely
because
is.
They don't get super advertised, right?
They don't get super advertised, and also I find that they don't get released in Australia for ages. Yeah. So we're stuck just not even knowing about these films.
Yes.
But we sat down, we watched the Dead Meat Awards, 2 films, or maybe 3, but we haven't seen the third one yet. 2 films stuck out to us. And that was The Passenger and No One Will Save You. And we've sat down and watched both, and we thought very, very good things about both.
And there's a reason why these films were nominated as part of the Dead Meat Awards. If you don't know what Dead Meat Awards are, they are part of the Dead Meat YouTube channel's yearly award ceremony.
For horror.
And these 2 films were amongst some of the nominated films. We'll start with, I guess, The Passenger, if you want, starring Kyle Gallner in an amazing performance.
Yeah.
This is a film which is pretty bloody great. It's pretty bloody great.
To be honest, this film for me is a 10 out of 10. Like, 10. I think it is perfect.
Yeah.
And I think that I love films that make you think and that are very open to interpretation. And I think this film is on the surface after the first watch open to interpretation.
Yes.
I sat down and watched the Dead Meat interview between Kyle Gallner and Johnny Berchtold, who play Randy and Benson, the main characters of the film. And that gives you so much closure about the film, and it just makes me love it even more. It's about a 50-minute interview between them. It's great. The film is amazing.
There's a lot going on in this film, and it'll keep you guessing as to sort of maybe why they do certain things. But you can't really guess where it's going, and that's probably a great thing about this movie, is it's pretty unique in the sense that you have no clue where it's going, and by the end of it, you'll be like, well, I guess I didn't quite see that coming.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is you kind of think you have an idea what's happening, and then the ending happens, and you're like, oh.
Yes,
well,
I mean, look,
I really wasn't there.
Just to give it some context, of course, The Passenger is about, basically it starts in a burger shop, almost like a diner, but like a burger shop.
I think it's called
Burgers. And effectively, we are met with a few of the employees there, and there's a bit of a argument that happens, and let's say someone ends up dead. And so basically we get a film which is a chase film, kind of. It's almost like a buddy adventure movie, road trip film, in which 2 characters are driving in their car for the majority of the movie.
It is very character driven, so I suggest that if you can't get with character-driven films and character studies, then you may not enjoy it. It's definitely not your typical gory horror movie where people are dying every 5 minutes.
It's very suspenseful.
There are moments of gore, but it doesn't rely on them. I think that if you can sit there and you can watch character studies, then you're going to really enjoy this film.
Look, Kyle Gallner's performance as the main character is, he sells it. He's really great in this role. And he's an interesting character as well. He's somebody that is a bit of a broken character, let's say. And performance fantastic. And the 2 characters together, the dynamic is really cool. One being this kind of cool guy, a bit of a hothead, and the other character being a very antisocial, awkward guy who's kind of getting pulled around. And it's a relatively violent film at times as well. And you just don't know where it's going to go. So you do constantly feel like, oh shit, what's going to happen next? Which is a lot of fun. Which is really a lot of fun. Yeah. So we agree that this one definitely deserved to be nominated. And 100% if you haven't seen it, which I think, again, Passenger's not a well-known film.
It's a very small film as well. You can definitely tell when the credits or the title card rolls at the start, you can tell there's a very low budget behind it.
That being said, it looks really great.
It looks amazing.
It looks fantastic.
But you can definitely tell.
Yeah, it doesn't look low budget at all. It's very well made.
You can definitely tell that there's a reason why this wasn't heard about much.
Yeah, like most smaller kind of
indie films.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. And that leaves us with, of course, as well.
No One Will Save You.
No One Will Save You. This film, I just want to say, if you haven't heard of it, this film is a bit more out there. It is an alien-based film.
Which to me, like straight away, I'm not a massive fan of sci-fi and alien films.
You're really not.
So I'd heard about this film a few months ago, and knowing that it was about aliens, I was like, not really interested in it too much, and I kind of just forgot about it.
You went in with very low expectations.
Not really.
Pretty low.
No, not really.
Okay.
No, I definitely knew I was going to like it, but that was only after I'd seen bits of it in Dead Meat's Horror Awards.
Yep.
When I heard about it and I knew it was about aliens, I'm like, there's no point in me even sitting down and watching it. But having seen those scenes that you sort of see in the nominees section and when they're announcing the categories for Dead Meat's Awards, I definitely was like, okay, this looks really good. Like the colors look awesome. It's very well shot, and to my surprise, well, not really to my surprise, it was amazing.
So a little bit more context again. This film is basically I almost don't want to tell you this, but the film is a film which has very little dialogue, and we're not really told why specifically, but effectively the movie has almost 5 words of dialogue in the entire film. And I will say you don't notice, actually.
No.
You might think when you hear that, that sounds weird. You actually don't notice that people aren't talking much. It's interesting.
And that just goes to show
how well they pulled it off.
They
really pulled it off. Because you do not miss the dialogue at all. You don't notice.
It was definitely a creative choice by the director, Brian Duffield, and I think he did a great job with it. To me, it only adds to the suspense of the film, the fact that no one's saying anything. And even when our main character, Bryn, who's played by Caitlin Dever, when she meets other people throughout the film, you're kind of waiting for her to talk and they never do, and it's really, really good. It's very well done.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Again, this film, I guess kind of like The Passenger, it feels pretty unique. Not a lot comes to mind that I've seen. The closest thing I could think of was They Live, which I don't want to go into too much because, again, no spoilers. But this film is, not much like else I'd seen. And for an alien film, they get to the aliens very quickly. They don't hide away too much. We see them a lot, like they're on screen a lot in your face. And even though this one is also a bit lower budget, it's about 22 million, I think it was. It looks really good. The aliens actually look really good, and it's very well shot. Looks really cool.
Yeah, they definitely use the dark to their advantage in a lot of the scenes in this film, and it definitely works to mask that CGI, because the CGI is definitely not perfect, but I think for the budget that they had, they fucking did an amazing job. They really, really did. Caitlin Dever's performance is incredible.
Yes.
I never really even knew about her until this film. And I'm like, God, this girl is amazing.
She is a big reason why this film works. If you had replaced her with someone slightly subpar, it just wouldn't. She sells this movie. The main actress in this is phenomenal. From the start, you can tell. As soon as this film starts, she kills it in every moment. And again, for a film where she doesn't say a lot, she's carrying the whole film purely on her body language and what she's doing with her face. And she pulls it off the entire film.
She's literally on screen 95% of the time as well. It is just her.
I want to say 99% of the time. She is the film.
The only time that she's not on the screen is when there's aliens and they're focusing on the aliens.
Yes.
But for the most part, she is there and she just kills it. For a film with little to no other characters, it's so well done.
She's amazing in it. She is enough of a reason to go and see this film because she just
much
pulls it
like
off.
Kyle Gallner in The Passengers.
Exactly right.
Both very driven by these amazing performances.
These two films are literally sold so heavily off the back of the stars of these films, and they both deserve a huge pat on the back for their performances. I think that with Caitlin starring in this film, she's got a big career, I think.
She's already been announced to play Abby, right?
Yes.
In The Last of Us.
Her playing Abby in Last of Us Season 2 is going to be a huge deal. I think it's going to give her another chance to really show us, because, look, let's say probably 50% of you out there know about Abby's story in The Last of Us, and I think it's going to give her a big chance to portray a huge level of emotion from two extremes, and I think she's going to do it. After watching this, I think she's going to do a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
So after she ends up with this role and that comes out, she could be in anything. I think, you know, she could end up getting...
she's I can see her career
big star.
skyrocketing.
Big
Much
star.
like, again, Kyle Gallner after The Passengers, I definitely think that was the entry into something very big for him.
I think Kyle's turned a lot of heads already.
Yeah. And for someone Kyle Gallner has been around for a while. Like, he was in the remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street, and that was back in 2010. Yes. And very background character in that. You don't really notice him too much. But the performance in this film...
He seems like he's grown up.
He's grown up. He knows exactly the type of actor he wants to be in, the type of movies he wants to be in. And I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Chuck him front and center in every horror movie. We've got Smile 2.
You love him now.
Smile 2 coming with him very, very soon. I'm excited to see... One, I really enjoyed Smile. Yeah. And I'm excited to see him as the main character in Smile 2. I think it's going to be very cool. Yeah,
Smile we both really, really enjoyed. It was a film that we just, happened to go see at the cinema. And
thought this isn't going to be very good. And then we were like, oh.
It was great. It made us smile. It was really good. But otherwise, guys, that is our most wrap-up of what we've been watching recently. I think something I'd like to ask you guys is probably more so... just like in the poll, really, kind of what are the franchises you would like us to focus on? What should we be watching? What should we be talking about? So if you want to let us know in the comments some of your favorite franchises, and like I said earlier, yes, I know you want more Saw stuff, so yes.
And we'll be giving you more Saw
stuff. We'll keep talking about Saw.
I'm surprised with that poll how well Scream did. I thought that people would be a bit over Scream.
Scream is still one of the biggest.
It is, but to me, Scream was at its best between 1 and 4. And I think that these remakes are just like, oh... kind of a bit old and stale now. Look, but if you guys like Scream, we'll sit down and we'll rewatch the Scream franchise again. No, I do. I just not the new ones.
Look, I think that Scream definitely was at its best in its early films, 100%. But it doesn't diminish it.
It doesn't diminish.
No, it's still one of the big ones. And Scream, when it came out, was revolutionary. It really was.
Yeah.
When it launched the first movie, it definitely brought back the slasher genre and God, the amount of films that came out, and most of them were crap after Scream to try and replicate its success.
Yeah.
But yeah, let us know. And it doesn't matter what franchise it is. It doesn't have to be one of the ones that we put in the YouTube poll. It could be just whatever your favorite franchise is. I know some people already mentioned
the Firefly trilogy.
Things. Some people already mentioned things like Chucky, which we didn't put in the poll.
Play, yeah.
A couple other ones as well. So definitely anything that you want us to watch, talk about, maybe do some top 10s about, please let us know. And if you could kindly hit like on this video, it would help us out a lot as well. We are still a pretty small channel, and these sorts of engagements does help us a lot as well. So otherwise, guys, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. It's a bit of a slog to make it through a podcast at this length. So if you did make it all the way through, we congratulate you. Thank you for being one of the OGs and the true fans. Otherwise, guys, thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next one.
See you next time, guys.
Game over.